What is up? Welcome back to another PFF podcast. I'm Mike Renner. Joining me, as usual, recapping the draft here, Steve Palazzolo. We alluded to it on the last one, but we'll be going through team by team, hitting best picks, worst picks, picks we didn't get, picks we loved, anything that really comes to mind for us. So just wanted to go through at least every team. We're hitting the AFC today, and we'll get right into it here with your Super Bowl champion, New England Patriots. Only 4 selections in the draft, but when we went and went value-wise and looked at where they picked each player versus where they were on our draft board, they had the best average value per pick of any team in this draft. So, Steve, what was your favorite pick for your New England Patriots?
Well, I thought Dietrich Wise, or Dietrich, as I think he said that's how you pronounce it, Dietrich, in the 4th round, a guy that, I thought had first-round potential maybe coming into the season, and didn't really necessarily show it at Arkansas, but he was so productive over the last 2 years in more of a part-time role. I think he ends up becoming a steal in the 4th round, a lot like his former teammate at Arkansas, Trey Flowers, 4th-round pick to the Patriots. A lot of similarities there, and Wise just a really good fit for the Patriots.
No, I love the Dietrich Wise pick, which that doesn't sound well.
No,
that doesn't come off the tongue well at all.
Tough to
Dietrich.
get that.
But yeah, Dietrich, the Patriots have a type at, edge or whatever. They have a type when you go back to Chandler Jones, Trey Flowers. It is 6'5", length with a little bend and a little, plays with leverage. Those are their guys because they are versatile chess pieces along that defensive line. You can play them out wide, bull rush, collapse the pocket, and then play them on the interior on, later downs. I think Jabal Sheard kind of fit that mold as well. So I'm a fan of the pick. I'm a fan of basically all their picks. Like I said, they drafted wherever they drafted each guy, they were higher on our board than where they ended up getting selected. So I think the Rivers pick was great. I think the Antonio Garcia pick was probably the last offensive tackle I even would have taken in this draft because it was such a weak, tackle class. And then Connor McDermott, I think he can profile to a guard at the next level. I think he's a good late round pick as well. So 4 for 4, really no complaints there.
Yeah, I thought it was good. They're always interesting because we always talk about, do you draft for need? Do you draft for best player and all that stuff? The Patriots always seem to draft for needs a year out. And Nate Solder, 1 year left on his contract. They have Marcus Cannon locked up at offensive tackle, but it seemed like they just said, look, we're going to get Garcia, who has good size, has some improving to do against in the run game, and then McDermott, really good size, 2 developmental tackles. I think they just had an eye toward the future and said, let's get these guys developed just in case we do lose Nate Solder. One of them steps in as a swing tackle, so solid draft. And, of course, they added a lot of other pieces from Brandon Cooks to Coney Ely, James O'Shaughnessy with their other draft picks. So they used a lot of veterans or picked up a lot of veterans with their other picks.
On the offensive line, though, that's basically how you have to do it nowadays. You have to prepare a year out because if you're trying to fill as soon as the need comes about, you're already too late. You can't rely on rookies in the NFL these days along the offensive line.
Right.
To step in and be quality starters, you can end up with a disaster on your hands. So
and that's what they
kudos
did.
To them, yeah.
Well, that's what they did with Solder. They got him when Matt Light had 1 year left. Light retired, and then Solder stepped in as the starter. So they generally have pretty good foresight as to how they want to replenish positions, and they just invested so much on the interior offensive line in the last 3 drafts.
When they got owned by the Broncos.
Well, Solder and Vollmer were hurt the entire season, but good foresight right now for the Patriots.
Foresight now,
forward.
Yeah, and that's a very good offensive line at the moment, too. I think they could be in the running for one of the best in the NFL next year. But we like the draft. 4 picks, 4 for 4, knocked out the park. On to Miami Dolphins with 7 picks in this draft. They drafted Charles Harris at the top, Raekwon in the 2nd, and then one of our favorites, Cordrea Tankersley in the 3rd. Steve, any pick really stand out to you as a good value?
Well, definitely Tankersley in the 3rd. I thought even just Devon Godchaux and Vincent Taylor, 5th, 6th, and Isaiah Ford in the 7th. Those are all guys I thought could have been up in that 3rd round range. So when you're getting 5th, 6th, 7th round picks that I thought were 3rd rounders, I feel good about that. And yeah, Tankersley, a guy that at one point was probably teasing 1st round consideration for us. Didn't test really well, but I feel like his movement on the field is pretty good for a 6'1" corner. I think he can play off, and he's a really good press corner. So if they'd use him in that way, I think he's got a shot. He just has to learn how to be a little bit less physical at the top of the route. That could get him in trouble early in his transition to the NFL.
The Gottschalk pick's interesting because back in 2015, he actually had the highest pass rushing grade of any interior player in this class here. He had the highest of all these guys, and even it didn't even play. It wasn't really playing full-time snaps either. It was only playing 594 snaps. So still, it wasn't just because he was on the field a lot more than these guys. He was a very talented pass rusher. Took a little step back in 2016, but still somewhat productive in that regard. So usually guys with that sort of pass rushing tape that the already proven production
showed it once,
tend to go a lot higher because run defense sort of an afterthought when it comes to the draft because teams just don't value it. I get that teams will sign nose tackles now to bigger deals, but you got to prove it once you get to the NFL because sometimes it doesn't always translate. But the pass rushing, that sort of pass rushing potential is just far more covered in the draft. For them to get him in the fifth, thought pretty good value there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, take Jonathan Allen out of the mix and maybe Malik McDowell and maybe Caleb Brantley, but Godchaux was one of the most productive interior defensive linemen over that 2-year period in this entire class, and he improved a lot against the run. I thought he really struggled against the run in 2015, but I thought game 1 in 2016 had already showed a ton of improvement against Wisconsin, had 7 stops, and was really all over the field, and that continued for much of the year. So definitely worth a look and very good value in the fifth.
Any picks for the Dolphins you didn't quite care for?
Yeah, so I didn't love Raekwon McMillan in the second. I think you know what you're going to get with him. He's a guy who just makes the plays that come to him. He does not miss a lot of tackles. Only missed 23 out of 268 attempts, which is really fantastic for a linebacker. And that's over a 3-year period. So he's going to make the plays. Every now and again, he'll blow up some lead blockers, and it's a lot of cool stuff. But you talked about it. It's run game versus pass game. I don't think he has great coverage upside. And when I'm talking, upside. That's a fine in the fine book for upside.
Oh God, that was like a dagger in my heart.
I don't think he's a good coverage player, Mike. Is that better?
He's just currently not great in coverage.
He's just not a good coverage player. With the AFC East picks, I always think about how that projects to eventually beating the Patriots, since it hasn't happened in 40 years. And I picture McMillan just getting eaten alive by the James Whites of the world if he's forced to cover them. So that would be my issue with McMillan, is the coverage, his coverage ability as a second-round pick. Now, if they had gotten him in the third, I'd say, okay, that's a pretty good early down linebacker, good value. Second round, probably a little high for him.
I love that everyone keeps showing the Raekwon pass breakup against Saquon Barkley on the wheel route. But what they don't show is the fact that he was about 8 yards behind him until the ball was severely underthrown, and then he gets back into it and lucks into it because he's not even looking at the ball barely. But I don't see the coverage skills there.
And that was his one. I don't have it off the top of my head. Was that? Let me see. I do have it here. How many pass? He had 5 pass breaks. So that's one of 2 pass breakups in 2016. 5 pass breakups in his entire career and 1 interception. And those numbers aren't all the only thing you want to judge. But again, you want to have, usually these better coverage players have some kind of playmaking ability that shows up in the stats. And with McMillan, it hasn't.
Yes, definitely agree there. All right, on to the Buffalo Bills. 6 picks. They traded back out of the 10 spot. I loved the haul they got for those picks. I love that they didn't end up reaching for any of the quarterbacks. Ended up getting Tre'Davious White there at the bottom of the first round, who we were much higher on probably than the general public. So that pick to me, probably their best one. Anyone else stand out to you, or was it? I actually like the first 3 picks, all Zay Jones and Deion Dawkins as well.
Yeah, it was solid. I just did a little Buffalo radio this week, and they asked me how it's an odd draft because they traded back in the first and picked up an extra 1, and then they traded up to get Zay Jones and Deion Dawkins. And I don't think it's that crazy. They basically said, we're going to trade back. They picked probably the best player available on the board in Tre'Davious White, minus the Reuben Fosters of the world that dropped for off-field. And then they traded up to get 2 real big needs in wide receiver Zay Jones and Deion Dawkins, who we have listed as a guard, but I think is going to start at right tackle for them, which is fine. He played tackle at Temple and did a pretty nice job. So I liked it. I thought it was a solid draft overall.
Definitely right tackle only.
Oh, he's a right tackle. Don't get started with me now, Mike, on the right tackle only. But yeah, I thought it was a nice draft. 3 potential starters there that, they're going to contribute right away. All 3, White, Jones, and Dawkins.
I love the draft so much, which makes it crazier to me that Doug Whaley left. Doug Whaley was shown the door just the day after the draft, which unbelievable. Like,
I don't know if he was really drafting. I think that was all predetermined, Mike. Right? That was in the cards, I would say.
But still, how is that a thing? Like, how does that happen?
You have a new regime. You have a new head coach. And clearly something along the way there was disagreement. And it sounded like McDermott had his hands in the draft a lot more than Whaley. So I think that was a predetermined move. And a move that wouldn't make sense maybe to happen in January or February, right? Because they've already done all the legwork on those prospects.
Still, like, there's a reason that never happens, I feel like. And it's because that I guess that just had to be an awkward conversation in the building.
Well, yeah.
All right, on to the last place AFC East team, the New York Jets. 9 selections in this one. Kicked it off with Jamal Adams, and it was kind of downhill from there. I didn't love their draft for as many picks as they had, for as much value as they could have gotten out of it. I don't know. You tell me, is there a saving grace in this draft? Do you like anyone after the first pick in this one?
Chad Hansen's pretty good.
Chad Hansen.
That's it.
Have I told the Chad Hansen story on this podcast before about how I watched all his tape from 2016, thought he was a light-skinned black guy, and I show up at the combine and go up to his podium, and I'm like, that's not Chad Hansen. That's a white dude, like with looking like the same haircut as me, and Chad Hansen's actually white. I guess I should have known by the name Chad, but he really looks like a light-skinned black dude on tape. That's just my take. But
I don't think the name Chad's going to give that away.
I know.
But
he's a good player,
I have no comment, Mike. I have no comment.
1 year really of production because he was a walk-on transfer or something like that.
I like him in the fourth. He was fine in the fourth.
But yeah. He has better speed on tape than what he tested, I think, at the combine. I think he ran something like a 4.5, much faster on tape, I thought. Large body receiver. I'm a fan of him. I thought he's much better tape than Darius Stewart, who they took, 60 picks prior to him.
I agree there. I agree there. Hansen, I think he runs the vertical route tree pretty well. A lot of curls and go routes and pretty good ball skills down the field. A couple of the guys that evaluated our wide receivers, Zoltan and Bryson, really liked him. So he was fine in the fourth. Let me go back to the top of the draft for a minute, though. Jamal Adams, good pick all around, do-it-all safety. We love Jamal Adams. I like Marcus May quite a bit, coming off injury. I might not like him at 39 overall, but now they've doubled up on safety. Again, going through the lens of we're trying to beat the Patriots here in the AFC East, those felt like let's stop Gronkowski, let's stop the tight ends of New England type of picks. Obviously, there's more that goes into it, but...
Let's get Calvin Pryor off the field.
What's that?
Let's get Calvin Pryor off the field, too. It also felt like.
Yeah, it seems like they're trying to trade him somewhere. They're trying to get him out of there. But so I liked Adams. I think May's a very good player. I think he's really good in the box as far as he's a very sure tackler. Both guys, sure tacklers. May can cover tight ends. He covered the slot a little bit in Florida. Not well, but he covered the slot. He can play deep a little bit. Adams can do a little bit of everything. So I'm fine with adding versatile safeties to the defense, but probably could have gotten a little bit more of an impact player at 39 over Marcus May, even though I like him. And then Darius Stewart, he's more of a gimmicky wide receiver at this point. Caught a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of short stuff, yards after the catch.
Yes.
And I'm not going to go off on Jordan Leggett in the 5th round, the tight end from Clemson. I just didn't enjoy watching his tape. We'll leave it at that.
You hate him. You were disgusted when he got selected.
He's not a good run blocker.
He's going to go off. You said you're going to leave it at that. No,
gets knocked off his routes quite a bit. He had that one spectacular catch in the national title game. So I just don't think Leggett brings a lot to the table at the tight end position.
Fair enough. Hey, say no more. All right, that's it. That's your AFC East. On to the AFC West, which after these drafts, I'm going to say it, best division in football.
Not the NFC
Chiefs.
South.
No, not the NFC South. AFC West. That division is loaded now. Chiefs were your champions a season ago. They mortgaged this draft and next one to some degree to go get Patrick Mahomes. Was it the right call?
I like it. I liked everything. I liked every draft except the Jets. I liked everything.
I'll say I didn't. Every team traded up to get the quarterbacks in this draft. when you have the 49ers, the Browns, the Jets, I guess this isn't like very much helping my point, but they all need quarterbacks and they all passed on quarterbacks, and they're all usually not, not ones to pass on quarterbacks, I'll say, from past history. When you have multiple quarterback needy teams passing on this quarterback class, that's kind of a red flag for me in terms of what the general NFL evaluation was of these guys.
No, I understand, but I if I'm the Chiefs, I look at it like this. I have Andy Reid. I trust his ability to develop quarterbacks and adjust to different quarterbacks. And if you're going to make a move, go get the guy with the highest upside, Mike.
Oh, no.
I did it. This one I meant. Well, the guy with the best toolbox.
Taylor, take that out. Taylor, edit that out.
Do not edit it out. It's true. The best toolbox? The best tools in the toolbox.
Okay. He does have the best arm talent. I will give you that. I'm fine. I'll just say I'm fine with the move. Fine with it. You better hit. He better be damn good.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it unfold. Him with Andy Reid. And here's what the Chiefs did. They said, look, are we really close to winning? Absolutely. But we also just scored 15 points against a terrible Steelers defense at home in the playoffs. We've tapped out. We're maxed out. As good as the defense has been, and they have the ability to play some championship level defense with that pass rush and some of those, their coverage players. But man, they just said Alex Smith experiment has been great. We've won a lot of games. He puts us. I always said Alex Smith gets you on the green so that you can putt in the playoffs and maybe hit that long putt and go on a run. That's Alex.
But you gotta go 60-footer, yeah.
But it's a really long putt. That's it.
I like the draft afterwards. I think Tano in the second round, where they got him, fits perfectly in that scheme. Then Kareem Hunt, we thought of him as a second round type of talent as a running back. My favorite pick might have been actually Leon McQuay. I think as a safety, he has a very similar skill set to what Eric Berry can do in terms of he could play the dime backer role. I like him where they got him. I thought he was a little underrated in this draft. Not a fantastic athlete, but safety's not a position where you need to be that. He was the only dude that showed up for USC against Alabama week 1, so I'm still a fan of his.
That's what stood out to you. I wasn't expecting you to highlight McQuay, but he was a highly touted recruit. I don't think his production always lived up to that, but solid. He had a solid 2016 season, so not bad.
We'll see. All right, that's the Chiefs. On to the Raiders, who had 9 selections, and only one pick really stands out for them, and it's Elijah Hood in the 7th. Pick of the steal of the draft already.
God, we already talked about this week. We already did this.
Oh, did we? We can hit it again. It's no big deal. People want to hear more about Elijah Hood. No, I love the pick. I loved their draft. I think they had a top 5 draft. Is that fair to say?
Because they got Elijah Hood so they got first round.
No, I think also
Elijah
their
Hood.
First 3 picks were all extremely solid picks.
So I think there's some risk. There's obviously some risk in the Gary and Conley pick.
Yes.
I think there's a little risk in the Eddie Vanderdoes pick, but when you pick it in the 3rd, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think those were some really good picks for the defense. Conley, man coverage corner, assuming everything checks out off the field, 6 feet tall, moves really well. I thought he was more late first, early second, but for a team that plays a lot of man, I can understand him more in like mid first. So I think that's good value there. Obi Melifonwu, now you add him to the secondary with Reggie Nelson.
Yeah.
I've been saying his name for months now, and it just flows off the tongue. Melifonwu. But you add him to Carl Joseph and Reggie Nelson at safety. I love that. This draft is all about defensive versatility. He adds a lot of that. I want to see him cover tight ends. He can cover receivers. He's 6'4", 225. Unbelievable athlete. So love that chess piece. Vanderdoes could be really good because his flashes are pretty good. Beyond that, I didn't love the rest of the draft. Besides,
I was going to say David Sharp. You were
David Sharp. That was their worst pick. 4th round. He came out early at Florida. Should not have come out at Florida. And that's it. He's just he has a long way to go as a run blocker, and he improved in pass protection, but he's certainly not a guy I trust putting out there in probably 2 or 3 years.
What's up with Florida and Florida State offensive linemen? I feel like they get touted more than any other schools for no sort of reason whatsoever. Like none of them turn out in the pros.
Florida's 2014. The 2014 class had 4 guys go to the league, and none of them are good.
Humphreys, was it Garcia?
Trenton
But like
Brown.
they get more hype for their classes, and that Florida State line in front of Winston, like none of those guys turned out either. It's just, and they all go high to mid rounds, and there just hasn't been a guy really work out of any of those schools in recent memory.
Stork was okay. Yeah, those concussions. No, you're right. None of them. You're right. From Cameron Irving, now Roderick Johnson just went, but yeah, you're right. None of them have really panned
out. Trey, what's his face?
Trey Jackson.
Trey Jackson, the Patriots just cut. Yeah.
Well, the funny thing
just my take.
Is people think. So I think Florida State fans think that they have a good offensive line for the most part. Florida
because
fans
they got that O-line, they got that offensive line coach. That's
right. But Florida fans
Hardo.
know that their offensive line's terrible, and then they all go to the league and they get to play. So they
declare early and get drafted in the 4th.
Makes no sense. All right, good job, Raiders. I like the first 3 picks were good, and steal of the draft, Elijah Hood.
Steal the draft, yep. On to the Denver Broncos, 8 selections. My favorite, making Chad Kelly Mr. Irrelevant, just spot on. I actually called it, 20 picks out, no big deal.
You did.
I called it, yeah.
Go check the Twitter and the timestamp.
I was talking with Josh in the office, and he's like, who do you think is going to be Mr. Irrelevant? I'm like, Broncos, Chad Kelly, easy. 20 minutes later.
What was your thought process? Why'd you go that way? You just knew he was still on the board.
It just seems, John Elway, quarterback whisperer, he thinks he can take any 7th round pick and make him a starter.
Who John Elway whispered to? Peyton Manning?
All his quarterbacks.
Trevor Siemian?
Trevor Siemian, yeah.
Paxton Lynch?
It's still one of the greatest GM moves was after, week 1 or week 2? Him replying to the guy who said, who called him out for drafting Trevor Siemian in the 7th round. Did you see that?
Yeah,
that was just fantastic. Now, Trevor Siemian, obviously, still not a good quarterback, but that was hilarious.
Sean had the last laugh, though.
Yeah. I don't hate the Garrett Bowles pick. I know we're lower on him than the general public.
I don't hate it either. It's not bad.
But I don't hate it. I hate the DeMarcus Walker pick, though. That one.
I don't hate that as much as you either. I think he could rush from the interior. One move or not, he could do it.
It's one move. If you probably saw his highlight tape after he got picked, and it was the inside swim move every single time, which you just NFL offensive linemen do tape study, and we'll figure that out. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
And he's a bad athlete. Like his testing numbers were.
That was pretty alarming.
So bad. Like I think he had like a 7.9 cone at 280, which yikes.
I guess where I am with Walker,
it's like a second over Joey Bosa.
Where I am with Walker, though, I'm not ready to write him off as a player, but I would not take him at 51 overall.
Yes.
So that's where I am. That was a round high for Walker, but I'm not ready to write him off as a player. Mm-hmm. I like Carlos Henderson in the 3rd. He's electric after the catch. Tavon Austin plus, in my opinion.
Yeah, they went interesting with him and McKenzie getting a couple slots, trying to find someone to work in that role.
Yeah, that is. McKenzie will return punts and do some stuff on special teams. Henderson, though, he's just not a very polished route runner, but I think if he could develop that a little bit, he could become a pretty dangerous weapon. I like him in the 3rd, and Jake Butt, very worthwhile risk in the 5th. He was our number 2 tight end, number 2 receiving grade in 2015. 16 took a step back before he got hurt in the offseason, but he's improved as a run blocker, and I think he's just he's one of those serviceable middle of the field type of tight ends. Will take a hit and find soft spots in zones and can get open a little bit against man coverage. Solid tight end, that Butt.
You know where I stand on Jake Butt.
Do I?
Slow tight ends might as well be.
How slow? I mean,
he's got to be like a 4.8 type of guy.
No.
I mean, they got Jeff Hoyerman on the roster already, right? He doesn't really add much that Hoyerman doesn't. I'm not a fan.
Better than Hoyerman.
I will say, though, the Henderson pick's interesting. He broke 48 tackles last year. No one else broke more than 26. 48 missed tackles on 82 catches.
He had 13 in one game.
It's like, I mean, I didn't absolutely love his tape, like you said. Like, I feel like he's a slot guy.
Right.
But, man, there's something there in terms of balance ratio to break that many tackles. So
Ginsu knife type of player. But like Henderson, I struggled putting him in our top 10 receivers. I couldn't slot 6 through 10 as receivers because they all had warts, and Henderson's warts was a pretty big one. He's just not polished as a route runner. Mm-hmm. But if you manufacture touches for him, I think he can be a very dangerous player. So if they have a plan for him, they're going to get some good value in the 3rd round.
Agreed. Okay, on to the last place team in the AFC West, who I'm on record right now as saying going to either win or be second. They're making the playoffs next year, is what I'm saying, and it's the LA Chargers. Even with the new stadium that holds less than some baseball stadiums, I think they are. I think this is a roster poised for it, and the fact that they got Forrest Lamp and Dan Feeney, I said if they reverse the curse on the O-line, this is a championship caliber roster. They're reversing the curse. Forrest Lamp's going to reverse the curse. There's no way he's not going to be good next year.
Where's he going to
There's
play?
just no doubt in my mind. I don't care where he plays.
You just said you can't trust rookie offensive linemen.
Except for Forrest Lamp. I'd put him at left tackle. I'd put him at left tackle.
Put him at left tackle with those itty-bitty arms, those T-Rexes?
32 and a quarter, I think, at the combine. 31 and 3/4.
Yeah, but they were really 31 plus at the Senior Bowl. What did he do?
Yeah. I don't know what he did, but it doesn't bother me. I think he's tackle. They're not going to play him. There's like zero chance, but man, I just think that this offensive line is going to be good enough to where I just think it's a legit roster at this point. I don't know.
It's a better roster. I think
you got Desmond King too. They got your boy.
I like the draft. Desmond King was nice. The roster is much improved. Absolutely. They've added a lot of pieces to the defense. I liked Mike Williams at 7 as far as the fit with Phillip Rivers. I wasn't really thinking along those lines throughout the mock draft process. I just gave them Malik Hooker and called it a day. But I think Mike Williams is a good fit for Phillip Rivers. Forrest Lamp, Dan Feeney, 2 starting offensive linemen, no matter where you put Lamp, they're going to start. And Desmond King, that guy, unbelievable production for us. We talk about another sure tackler, only 11 missed tackles in his entire career, or on his last 176 attempts. In the last 3 years. He says he's a good zone corner. And we talked about him on the last pod. Good zone corner, good fit, good value. Love it in the 5th.
Yeah, a great draft. I think after last year, they have arguably the best draft after the Dallas Cowboys in terms of impact. Bosa, Hunter Henry, Jatavis Brown. This team's poised. They're poised, Steve.
Poised.
I
still can't get it out of my head that Phillip Rivers was just, crouching behind this terrible offensive line. And I'm not ready to say that that's completely turned around yet.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I said, it's cursed. They have to lift the curse. It could happen. Forrest Lamp, my favorite O-line in the draft. All right, on to the Pittsburgh Steelers. AFC North. Did not love this draft top to bottom. They had 8 picks here. TJ Watt at the top, I'm fine with. Then kind of went downhill from there for me. What's your take? We hit on Juju in the last pod.
We did. Juju doesn't separate that well, doesn't win at the catch point often enough. Those are issues. Watt was fine. First overall, I agree with you there. There's room to grow for him. Only 1 year of production, and it was really, really good. I think he'll be a good fit. Might instantly become their best edge rusher, minus him and James Harrison, right? But he'll be the guy. I think Watt has a chance to just immediately surpass Bud Dupree and immediately do better than anything Jarvis Jones did rushing the passer during his time in Pittsburgh. James Conner, best story of the draft. Don't mind it there.
I still thought it was high.
It was high. It was a little high for him.
Yeah, because they were still at 105 overall. They were still... You could have gotten an impact starter or, an immediate type of starter on the defensive side of the ball there with the talent in this draft.
Or another edge or, Blair Brown at linebacker. I mean, there is a lot of talent to be had still.
And, I love the story of James Conner, Pittsburgh running back, going to Pittsburgh in the NFL. It's just not, addressing James Conner and Joshua Dobbs, your 3rd and 4th picks there at 105 and 135 overall. You could have added 2 players to this defense where this is a championship roster right now. If you get more help there, you could win now. And those both feel like sort of iffy long term.
But that was the same pick that picked Dak Prescott, so that's what Josh Dobbs is going to be.
That's how it works, right?
Right. Every 199 is going to be a Super Bowl
scouting.
MVP. Pick scouting is the new
pick number scouting.
The new undervalued asset.
The trade value for 135 is much more than any other pick around it.
If you told me a year ago that Josh Dobbs not only was going to get drafted, but drafted in the 4th, and I wouldn't think it was that crazy, I would think you're crazy for even bringing such things up. But Dobbs grows on you a little bit. He's got some accuracy issues, but always seems to step up, make big plays under pressure, got better every year. There's something to just a guy like that taking that middle round shot on that type of quarterback. I'm okay with it. Long snapper in the 6th round, less than ideal. Still think there were good players on the board then. Brian Allen, 5th round pick, pure size, speed, projection type of guy. Keon Adams, pretty solid, undersized rusher in the 7th. And we need to talk about Cameron Sutton in the 3rd, Tennessee. I mean, his best work was in 2014. It's been a few years, injuries, inconsistency, but if he gets back to that, pretty good pick, versatile, play the slot, play outside, played a little safety at the Senior Bowl, so I don't hate Cam Sutton at that point.
That's your Pittsburgh Steelers. On to the Baltimore Ravens. 7 picks in this draft. Kicked it off with Marlon Humphrey. I'm a fan of. I liked that pick. I said before, I liked the fact that cornerback wasn't necessarily a need for them. You know, it wasn't like they were hurting for cornerbacks. If they didn't pick a single cornerback in this draft, they still would have had a strong group with Brandon Carr, Jimmy Smith, Tavon Young there. But, you know, Ozzie realizes 3 corners isn't even enough to win in the NFL these days. You need 4. You need to be able to play dime at a high level with 4 guys.
Well, Jags fans didn't want you to.
That's why I love. Oh yeah, that's why that was. We'll get to that later when we hit the Jags. But I thought that the Baltimore Ravens did it correctly in that they saw, hey, talented cornerback class. Let me grab a guy who can start right away for us. And Marlon Humphrey, I think, can do that.
I also think. I think it was I think corner was a need. They've been in the market for a long press type of corner. Jimmy Smith gets hurt every year. I think this is a little Jimmy Smith insurance, look to the future insurance. I also think that Marlon Humphrey benefited from every other corner with first-round talent having some sort of off-field issue.
This is true.
From Gary Conley, you know, his off-field, from Tease Tabor running 4.7s, to Jordan Lewis having off-field, to Sidney Jones tearing his Achilles, and all of a sudden Marlon Humphrey, who we saw, or at least I had on the board late first for the entire process, late first, early second, and he just creeps up and up and up because all of the starting corners with his type of size had issues. So I think I'm higher on him from it.
Yeah,
you're a little higher. Our issue, struggles at the catch point. Your point, there was some spectacular catches made on him, but that's why he gave up 16.9 yards per reception over the last 2 years. But that's still too many big plays. But before the catch, he's outstanding, moves really well, good length. I think he's a good player. And I think the Ravens just went really safe. They went with a guy that had no issues, no buzz.
Yes.
Got their corner, middle of the first, and they were happy.
And then I loved their 2 third-round picks. Chris Wormley basically has Baltimore Ravens, you know, defensive end. That is their prototype. It fits them to a T in terms of what he does, which is, you know, stuff the run first. Fantastic athlete who will hold the point of attack at play after play after play. Have a little bit from a bull rushing perspective. He's basically, I feel like, profile-wise in terms of how he'll produce, very similar to what we saw from Timmy Jernigan as a base end. Obviously, very different body types, but I think they're both sort of bull rushers as pass rushers and then hold the point very well against the run. So I think he could seamlessly replace what they lost from Jernigan.
But I was going to say, you did the player comparison in PFF Draft Pass.
Oh.
It was Lawrence Guy.
Lawrence Guy, who also...
Another former Raven that he needs to replace.
Was very much the same also. So, and then Tim Williams, first-round talent, off-field stuff, a nightmare. That's why he's in the 3rd. But Bama guy, Ozzie knows. Ozzie's got the inside info. Ozzie knows he's smoking the cigs on the side, so he'll get him. He's got nicotine patches there.
If he cuts back, if the nicotine patches help, Williams will be a much more productive edge rusher than Tyus Bowser, right? That's second round pick, Tyus Bowser.
Tyus Bowser, and I think I've given this take multiple times. He just didn't rush the passer at Houston, and when he did, he was only beating, offensive tackles that he had such a gigantic athletic advantage against that it's concerning once he gets to the NFL. What's he going to do against tackles who, for the most part, can move? I know there's some out there that still struggle to get out of their stance, Eric Flowers and some others, but Bowser really so unrefined as a pass rusher at this point. He's a few years away from contributing that regard, I'd say. He might even be an off-ball linebacker for them, which I think would be a better role.
I think it might be. I'm curious to see what they do with him. I think that athleticism would probably better translate that way, and then maybe if you use him kind of like Hassan Reddick and isolate him on backs as a blitzer rather than lining him up and just saying, here, go. That's why there's a difference between blitzing and rushing the passer. When you're rushing the passer, you're just saying, okay, I'm going to just go beat this offensive tackle one-on-one, whereas if you're blitzing, there's timing involved, and you're usually getting isolated on a lesser blocker. Just to give you some insight, though, from Draft Pass, we have the chart. How many rushes did it take to get pressure at all these different, did you beat a guy inside, outside, bull rush? He was extremely low in all of those rankings, 31st, 56th, 67th, but where he got most of his pressures was unblocked and in pursuit or cleanup. He had the second highest rate of cleanup or pursuit pressures. So 28 pressures, very, very few of them came beating a man one-on-one is what I'm trying to get at here.
And another just interesting kind of note, between Bowser and Tim Williams, over the last 3 years, only 1,000 pass rushing snaps between them. So 2 guys averaging, that fewest snaps per year rushing the passer. Someone like Jordan Willis rushed the passer 500 times last year alone. So they just have not seen the field much as pass rushers, either of them, which is interesting that they went those guys back to, in back-to-back rounds.
Can I cite Williams' stats, though, real quick? 484 pass rushes, which you mentioned is about a season's worth of rushes.
Yes.
Over the last 3 years, he had 22 sacks, 19 QB hits, both numbers pretty incredible if you just put those in one season, and then 83 hurries, which you would expect on 484 rushes. You'd probably expect about 40 hurries maybe, and
yes.
He had 83. So
insanity.
First round type of player, third round, definitely worth it. I know he had a lot of off-field issues. The nicotine patches will take care of him.
Let us pray. All right, on to the Cincinnati Bengals. Our favorite draft. We've been saying it to anyone who will listen on the radio this week. John Ross, Joe Mixon, Jordan Willis, Carl Lawson, all first-rounders. Ryan Glasgow, maybe my favorite multifaceted nose tackle in this class. I think all those guys can step in and start and play quality football right away for them. I thought this was the Cincinnati Bengals. This was the year that maybe Marvin Lewis was lame duck head coach. I just thought they were heading in the wrong direction in terms of the age of that roster, where it was going. They might have turned it around in one draft. Am I overreacting and thinking that?
A little bit, but not really.
Yeah,
Look, but you're right, though. The roster peaked in 2015. Last year they took a step back, and I feel like this is getting them back on track. 2015, it was all about that offense. I keep pointing to that year when Andy Dalton put up unbelievable stats as like my example of how you could take this average quarterback and really elevate him just if you have a ton of weapons around him.
Yes,
and he had A.J. Green, he had Marvin Jones, Tyler Eifert was great, Mohamed Sanu. Now last year they lose Marvin Jones. Who's that?
And a great O-line.
And a great O-line. It all came into place for Dalton, right? Now the O-line's depleted. You don't have Sanu. You don't have mostly Marvin Jones is the big one that they lost. So last year the offense takes a huge step back. Now they're getting back to it. Tyler Boyd's a good number 3. John Ross steps in as the number 2. Deep threat who can also get open. Just has shiftiness and speed. You have A.J. Green. Josh Malone adds another deep threat to it. And then Joe Mixon, off-field aside, just can do so much in the pass game for them. So they're getting this offense back on track. And then they got 2 guys that we had ranked as first-round edge rushers in Jordan Willis and Carl Lawson. And I know Lawson has serious injury concerns, but when you take him 4th round, 116 overall, absolutely, sign me up. Well worth the risk.
I go back to, so I don't actually have inside info on what Lawson's medical was, but just how many edge rushers have had careers basically derailed by injury issues? It just feels like so few. It's not a vicious position where you're not having violent interactions play after play as an edge rusher. You're not slamming into bodies. You're playing patty cake with offensive tackles basically a lot of the time. So, and especially a guy like Lawson who doesn't finish, so he doesn't get in on tackles even. So,
are you trying to piss off the defensive line? A D-line Twitter? Is there a D-line Twitter out there? Who's on D-line Twitter?
There really is none. It's just O-line.
Stephen White.
Oh yeah, Stephen. Okay. But the one reason I'm gonna quell expectations, the offensive line could be a nightmare next year.
Yeah, they're losing Whitworth and Zeitler, and they're replacing. Jake Fisher's going to be a starter. Cedric Aboye, a starter again. So maybe my 2018 mock draft that has Mike McGlinchey going there might help them.
Oh,
how about
what
that?
A plug. Sneak that in.
ProFootballFocus.com 2018 mock. Check it out.
All right, on to...
Wait.
Okay.
Let's just sum it up. John Ross, Joe Mixon, Jordan Willis, Carl Lawson. That's 4 first-round talents. And then Bengals reminded us that William Jackson, their first-rounder last year, who was a top 15 player on our board, didn't play due to injury. And Andrew Billings, who we had as a fringe first-round player, didn't play.
You did. I didn't.
You didn't. We had some discrepancies on Billings. But either way, they're adding at least 5 first-round talents to the roster next year. That's a pretty big haul.
I will say, though, they passed on Zane Gonzalez. So draft grade goes in the tank.
Yeah,
when you pick Jake Elliott over Zane.
They were going pretty much based off draft pass. Right? They were going based off draft pass, and then it's like they lost a couple pages. Or you know what?
Well, did we give out kicker pages?
That's what happened. We didn't put the kicker. The kicker rankings didn't make the cut. I think I cut it because nobody was going to read it. And the Bengals took the wrong kicker.
Bengals.
So good job, Bengals, going strictly based off of PFF draft pass until your 5th round.
Yes, great stuff. All right, on to the Cleveland Browns, who had themselves a draft as well. It hurts my heart that they went Jabril Peppers at 25 when they could have had Reuben Foster. Imagine the draft of Myles Garrett, Reuben Foster, and David Njoku in the first. Legitimately 3 cornerstone type of pieces.
Unbelievable.
They could have had. I think they still got 2. I'm still happy with Garrett and Njoku. The Peppers pick, we shall see. And then they netted a first rounder next year. They keep doing it. It's unbelievable.
It's the way to build a team. And
yes.
If you just always have that draft capital, and this is the whole thing. Even if they don't hit on Peppers, it's all about coming out of the draft with quality players. And if you're just looking for 3 or 4 quality players every year, I feel pretty good about Myles Garrett, David Njoku, Larry Ogunjobi in the 3rd. They took a shot on Caleb Brantley, off-field issues there, but I think worth a shot in the 6th
round talent,
to handle that. And even if they don't hit on Peppers, then they're still fine, and they still have a first rounder next year, and you just keep drafting in volume. I'm interested to see Peppers in Greg Williams' system, though. Greg Williams likes to use that money backer, that dime backer, and even though I think he's supposed to be more of a true strong safety, I think he's going to start getting that linebacker type of role. So we'll see what he does there.
We shall see.
Can I talk about Kaiser for a second, though?
Talk about him.
Don't love DeShone Kizer.
He doesn't love you either, Steve.
He hates me off the record and on the record. He's not happy with me and my analysis, but I think the fit's good. And he has issues with consistency. I've been on record saying he makes difficult things look easy and easy things look difficult. He'll make this spectacular throw and then overthrow a 5-yard curl by about 10 feet. So if he could tie up some of the easy stuff, he could be a good player. That's a big if. But I like the fact that he was the 4th selection for the Browns in this draft. He is not the guy that they've tied their future to. If he fails, it's okay. They still had 3 other first-round picks. They could still have eyes for other quarterbacks next year. They could still be in the Sam Darnold sweepstakes or Josh Rosen or whoever emerges. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. They can look elsewhere. So the pressure's off Kaiser. They could see if they could tap into that potential and upside, Mike. Figure it out with Hugh Jackson. But there's no pressure to just make him the guy. I like it. He might not even beat Cody Kessler for the job, which is fine.
We need like a reggae horn every time someone says upside. Just like we need that sound effect
or some sort of ching ching money sign. I'm paying the
cash
fine
register.
Book. Yeah, cash register.
But yeah, Browns love the draft.
Good draft.
And then 5 first and second round picks next year.
They got their kicker too.
2019. If you just look at this actual roster right now and what they have offensively, it's pretty damn good right now. Like Corey Coleman, Kenny Britt, while I would have loved that they kept Terrell Pryor, Kenny Britt's still a fine receiver as well. And then Njoku, an offensive line with Kevin Zeitler, J.C. Treader, Joel Bitonio, Joe Thomas.
Line's legit.
Sean Coleman. There's something there. If any of these quarterbacks,
Joe Schobert,
Brock Osweiler takes the next step, and then it just comes down to the defense side of the ball.
I forgot about Osweiler.
This is the year. He just needed one more year of seasoning. Everyone knew that. Everyone knew the 6th year was the charm with him.
Well, when you're a tall quarterback, you can't you're not going to maximize your throwing potential until you're about 27, 28 anyway. That's when Brock really breaks out.
Needs to get that downhill motion. All right, on to the AFC South, where the Houston Texans were your champion a season ago. They had 7 picks. We loved the Zach Cunningham pick in the second round, and they came out and said something. They said he could play outside linebacker for them. Does that make any sense? That was weird.
Like rush linebacker in their 3-4?
It said outside linebacker, and they listed him on the roster as outside linebacker. I think they may have.
They might be talking about.
I was gonna say this was a low conspiracy theory. I think they did it just to not hurt Cush's feelings. Brian Cushing, make sure he didn't go on a meltdown on draft night.
that might be true. Or they might just be talking over under front, and Cunningham's really the will and fly to the ball outside backer. I'm hoping that's what it is. He's not. A pet peeve of mine is when people say, "Oh, you're a 3-4 team. You need more linebackers." You really don't. You only need 2 linebackers. You need more defensive line bodies and types. But you don't convert linebackers to 3-4 outside backer. He is a fly to the football type of guy, willing to take on blocks. Certainly needs to tackle better. 34 misses the last 2 years, but he's got good length and coverage. He could compress his zones. The way he plays gets good depth. So I'm a big fan of Cunningham. I thought he was a late first, fringe first round type of player. So I like where they got Cunningham. One of my favorite picks for them.
But again, in this draft is going to come down to what is Deshaun Watson for them? Is he a quality starter, or is he, as our coworker Zach Robinson so eloquently put it, a career backup?
No, we did not say career back.
Or what do you say? Ups or his potential?
I think it was backup. What was starter? Ching Ching.
Best role in the NFL. Backup quarterback.
Look, I think he came around on Watson a little bit more. We put him as a starter in the draft pass. Ultimately, the things that he needs to improve, which is going through his reads and progressions and post snap stuff, where he's good is pre snap. And Zach even said he owns the pre-snap process. That's an Andy Dalton type of thing. Dalton, if you give him a good pre-snap read, a clean read, and you get the same thing post-snap, he knows where to go with the ball. That's Watson. Other than the couple times he was baited last year. It's when post-snap things, get cloudy, disguising coverages against him, and then he's got to go through his progressions to get to the open receiver. It's not that he can't do it. He didn't do it at Clemson, either because he can't and they didn't want him to do it, or because they said, all right, Deshaun, 1 read, 2 reads, and take off, use your athleticism. For whatever the reason, that's going to be an adjustment at the next level. So that's where we are with Watson. There's something that needs to improve there, or at least he needs to show it. Pocket presence, a little questionable at times. His accuracy will wane. I thought he should have dominated last year. He didn't really dominate the way he should with that supporting cast. But the best part about him, can make all the necessary throws, downfield accuracy, can do all of that, and he always bounces back from mistakes. I can't wait to watch him develop under Bill O'Brien.
No, I'd be excited if I was a Texans fan. I think that was a very best case scenario for them, especially picking at 25, was to get him. I actually put that in my dream mock. I said Deshaun Watson ideal for them in terms of fit. I just worry about, like you said, year one, you're still starting a rookie with a roster that could go. So I do wonder if they still sign a quarterback, either Jay Cutler or Colin Kaepernick, to run that offense right out the gate and let Watson get some.
They should trade for Brock Osweiler. Nice veteran presence. Get him in there to lead the playoff charge.
And maybe a second-round pick would be nice also in that trade.
Get that second-round pick back.
All right, on to the Tennessee Titans, who had 9 picks in this draft. Kicked it off with Corey Davis, then Adoree Jackson in the first. I loved the Corey Davis pick. One of my favorite. I get it wasn't amazing value in terms of, but one of my favorites in terms of, it was a surprise to me. Didn't think they'd go that route, but they did. I thought it was a perfect fit.
Perfect fit. I had mocked Davis to Tennessee at 5 throughout much of the draft process. But then with all the rumblings, the fact that Davis never worked out this offseason, pro day or combine, all the rumblings that he was going to fall to the middle, maybe late first round, and I'm thinking, okay, he's not going to go there. I was thrilled to see the Titans take him. Love the fit from Mariota. Go back and listen to our Draft Rumors podcast when I made the most ridiculous, bold prediction that I've ever made. And it was about Corey Davis. Go check it out. Top 10. No, go listen to it.
Okay, just go listen to it.
Bold. Yeah. So NFL Draft Rumors was 2 podcasts ago. So love that fit. He's good for Mariota because he knows how to get open. Mariota's not going to throw to guys that are really in tight coverage. That's not really his game. Davis is going to create good separation at the short and intermediate level, can do a little bit down the field. Love the fit for Marcus Mariota.
And then they kept adding talent on the offensive side of the ball. Taywan Taylor and Jonnu Smith. Add some athletes there. Taywan Taylor, freakish 3-cone at the combine. I think he ran like a 6.57, something like that.
He's a good route runner, too. He can get over. I mean, I think these are the two starters. These are the guys that are going to start going forward. Like Tajay Sharp is going to take a back seat to these guys. And this is the future at the receiver position for Tennessee, and I like it. Yes,
I'm on board as well. So good draft for them. Jayon Brown, I was a fan of too in the 5th round. I think he can cover at the linebacker position. Surprised he lasted that long, the UCLA linebacker. So another team where knocked it out the park. We're going to say that a lot. We said it a lot of times, but again, we thought a lot of teams had good drafts. Onto the Indianapolis Colts, who got one of the steals the first round with that run on offense. They lucked out because they got a good one in Malik Hooker, a guy who can play that single high safety. I know Albert Breer called it the pick of the draft in our draft show. He might be a little biased.
Never wearing the Ohio State homer hat ever, Burt Breer.
Yeah, I think he actually put on Ohio State hat halfway through the show. I think
Ohio State boxers too.
That may not have been.
He's a big Ohio State fan, Burt Breer, but he passionately said Malik Hooker is the best safety I've ever seen in college.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, Burt. I know you're an
so great listener. That he started 1 year, and I'm kidding, but he is great. I mean,
Hooker is a playmaker. Here's what I kept saying about safeties, because people asked me, what about just 1 year of production? I think if you see a safety make 3 or 4 spectacular plays, you don't need to see him make 8 to 10, right? You know that he can do it. And so I think he's a guy, if he's put in position to succeed, which is just playing that deep safety role, either in 2 high or single high, he could turn the ball over. He could create plays for the defense. That's well worth it at 15.
I also loved the Terrell Basham pick. I think he is what that defense needs in terms of physicality along that front. A guy who can play both run and pass. One of my favorite bull rushers in the draft. Dude goes 100 miles per hour every snap, and I loved it. Ohio defensive end, probably outside linebacker, whatever, edge guy. They got him in the 3rd. And then a sneaky pick, which I kind of like the more I think about it, the Zach Banner pick. I get that he's enormous, but there's something there if you can get him in shape. There is something there if you get him in shape.
So our offensive line guy, Taylor Wright, did not love Banner. Mostly because I think he is so huge at 360 pounds. He doesn't move very well. We got some questions on Twitter.
He moves like shit. I mean, he does. Everyone at 360 pounds moves like that.
He moves pretty poorly. He did grade pretty well for us because he did have enough blocks. When he gets it's one of those, when he gets his hands on you, he's tough to beat. It's just a matter of getting in position. So maybe there is something if he can lose some weight, get a little bit quicker. Also, if the Colts continue to run more power, more of that gap scheme, he doesn't have to move as much. He can just kind of lean on guys on down blocks. And if he gets his hands on you there, he can create some movement. The problem's still going to be in pass protection, trusting him against any kind of edge rush talent. He's not a right tackle only. He's just a tackle, because right tackles have to face the speed rush as well, and it's scary going up against Banner. Tim Williams ate his lunch week 1.
And then interesting pick, the Grover Stewart, the Albany State nose tackle. 347 pounds, but tested pretty freakishly. Tested on on Dontari Poe type of levels for a 347 pounder. Obviously, you have no clue. He probably just owned every guy he saw at Albany State. But those guys, I feel like fat boys. They're just God only made so many of them that are able to hold up at nose tackle. I think that could be a good pick.
The planet theory. There's only so many on the planet. I like the idea, and the Browns did this last year. I think a lot of people think, PFF, you guys would just take your guys. If I was an NFL GM, I would take probably a mix of guys that were crazy productive in our system in rounds 4, 5, 6, 7. Guys that were really productive football players, and then you mix in a Grover Stewart, who you have no idea what his production really is because he's playing at Albany State, but he's a freak athlete, and you try to hit on it. So I think it's, diversify your picks, diversify those funds.
Yeah, I feel like what we could do best is identify guys on one end or the other who are either terribly unproductive or guys who are not productive and not athletic, the Jihad Wards of the world
Ooh, cheap shots.
who get kind of hyped for I don't know
For
what reason.
What reason? I don't.
But if they're but like if they don't have the production and they don't have the athleticism, then some of those guys we just wouldn't like. Those are the guys we wouldn't touch. So that's
a good way of putting it.
All right, on to one more team, and the one team that we're probably going to say, at least I'm going to say, the not nicest things about. Sorry, guys. And it's the Jacksonville Jaguars. Their best pick came at the position on the roster or the best pick in my opinion, I'll clarify, came at the position on the roster that's, I'd say, easily the strongest at the moment, and that's linebacker Blair Brown. I thought in the 5th rounds where they got him was a great pick. We had him as probably a 3rd, 4th round type of talent, but he plays, you have 3 starting linebackers. They can't even get Miles Jack on the field right now with how many linebackers they have. Almost no chance Blair Brown sees the field. And they took Leonard Fournette 4th overall. And if you want to hear my thoughts on Leonard, I was gonna say, you want to hear my thoughts on Leonard Fournette, listen to any of the last 10 podcasts we've done.
Can you give me the what am I looking for? Cliff Notes version of Fournette. Why don't you like him in general, and why is he not a good fit in Jacksonville in 30 seconds?
1, scheme limited. 2, not good enough to overcome an poor offensive line because of the way he runs. He's not dynamic behind the line of scrimmage. He's very quick to the line, needs to see a hole right away, needs to have a defined hole right away, or else he's probably not making it into much. That's just my take.
Now, if they can build that offensive line, and one of my draft axioms that I tweeted out before the draft, you're not just drafting for this year. So Jacksonville has a bad offensive line. If they can build that offensive line and you can get Fournette to the 2nd level somehow, pretty special runner. Speed, power, he's going to kill some people. That's what he does. So I'm not ready to write him off yet. I also don't love taking him at 4 overall. 4 overall.
That's what it comes down to. 4 overall. Like I said, he's like a 2nd rounder. I think he can still run. He's not going to transcend your O-line, and that's not worth a top 5 pick then at that point.
So now Cam Robinson, 2nd round. I feel like I'm kind of glad Cam went in the 2nd round because he was getting so much 1st round hype. I don't know if we had something to do with it, but we've been banging that drum that, hey guys, he's not really a top 10 pick. Doesn't look like it on tape. I think people started to catch up to that after a while. So we went.
I feel like we should have seen it coming too, because just what he does, not really. I feel like mentality-wise, not something O-line coaches like. Garrett Bowles. We should have seen that Garrett Bowles was going to be the first one off the board because of the finishing, the nastiness, all that. That is not Cam Robinson. He is the opposite side of the spectrum in terms of has lazy reps, has blown assignments, that sort of thing that offensive line coaches probably hate when they watch on tape.
And my first experience with Cam was watching him as a true freshman against Florida. He made every block that you need to make in the run game. Pulling, on the move, backside cutoffs, down blocks. He did everything. 2nd level. And he was smooth in pass protection, and I'm like, all right, I get the hype. And honestly, since that point, he never looked like a 1st round pick. That was his peak, true freshman year against Florida. But I liked him in the 2nd round because if you get the right offensive line coach, if he could figure it out, the potential's there. The tools are there.
Cash
the
register.
Upside's there, maybe.
I was going to say, ching.
But I don't want to be the one to try to get him out of it, to get it out of him. I didn't want to be the one to take it. So Fournette's a little risky pick. Robinson's a little risky pick. And both guys at 4 and 34 overall. So.
And then lastly, while DeJuan Smoot at 68 was probably where we'd put them, they took Smoot over Jordan Willis. Like, I don't see how you can value Smoot over Jordan Willis at that point.
No, Willis was gone by then, wasn't he?
No, that's the thing. Willis went 5 picks later.
Oh, he
73
did?
overall. Yeah, that's why their first 3 picks, just every time they went off the board, I was just cringing.
Right, I like Smoot at that point, unless Jordan Willis is still on the board.
Exactly.
That's the correct answer. Love Blair Brown. He's probably just going to make his way onto the field anyway. It doesn't matter what their depth is. Telvin Smith's overrated.
Oh, Steve. I like Telvin Smith. Okay. I know you've thrown it out there a handful of times. I still like him.
He's overrated. Well, people think he's...
I guess, okay, what do people rate him?
People rate him as this, tackling machine, awesome all over the field player when he's all over the field because there's crossing routes running behind him.
Okay, yeah,
Boom,
that's
got
fair.
him. I got him. Covered 3 crossing routes. You can't cover him. Don't forget D.D. Westbrook, though. Off-field aside, second round talent, in our opinion. A little slight, shifty route runner. Adding another weapon for Blake Bortles or Josh Allen whenever Josh Allen gets drafted to the Jags next year.
Oh, shots fired. All right, well, that's our take on the Jaguars draft.
Do you have anything on Marquez Williams, the 280-pound fullback that's going to be lead blocking for Leonard Fournette?
No, but I want to see him in person because 5'11", 280 has to look pretty funny.
It's a lot of fun watching a little bit of his tape. So they're going to go power I, Fournette, Cam Robinson, Marquez Williams, moving backwards to power running in Jacksonville.
That is it for us, your AFC recap. We will be hitting NFC on Friday, and we are still updating Draft Pass. So if you guys want to see how these players that your favorite team just drafted fit into your team, their stats, how we project them in year one, go check it out, profootballfocus.com/draftpass17. Still offering great content there, still very important all the way up until next year. Get you a little head start on some fantasy too. So we think it's worth far more than what we're charging for at the moment. Hopefully you guys do too. Go check it out. And we'll talk to you later this week. Have a good one.